Good evening, I'm Matterall. Tonight on Talking in Stations, Gobbins, the leader of Horde, held a rare 2-hour town hall. Along with his FCs, he took Horde through the war events so far. We'll have more on that in a minute. In other news, Triglavians reached their 27th full Liminality system. What now? We'll look at what messages they have been sending us and see if we can decipher what's next. Those stories and more today on TIS, the EVE Online report. Let's get started. How's it going, Maddoxar?
It's going good. We're also joined by Gagorin.
Hello.
All right, guys. First thing first, Gobbins does something that he very rarely does. Gagorin, you were there. What was it like?
It was he doesn't always say stuff, but when he does say stuff, it's worth listening to. Other alliance leaders seem more interested in being in the spotlight than him, but he's definitely someone who knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, so describe what actually happened yesterday.
Well, some of the main things were he went over how the war is doing and what Horde's plans are. Like, one of the things was that well, technically Horde as an alliance isn't fully deployed to the war. It's just Alpha Star Pilot's personal SIG that he ran, but it's just that when the war happened, basically everyone focused primarily on doing that. So home front stuff, even though there's more effort put into defending home front stuff than NC is doing, it has generally fallen by the wayside. So one of the things he talked about was how that's being handled.
Mm-hmm. What does he say about Fountain and their activity there? Is there anything surprising?
It was the Fountain. It was mostly what I expected him to say. That we went in there, and after being initially held up at the close to the regional gate from Hafib, once we broke through there, the defenders decided that they weren't able to continue defending it once we got in.
Mm-hmm. And so okay, so I guess I imagine he says what we all kind of saw, which was there was really one battle with capitals, and once those were destroyed, the rest of Fountain essentially started to collapse until the end when there was some resistance to a couple of keep stars going down. One ended in a server timeout, which we saw, but another one was a really good bombing run, ended it early. That was YTAC 2 ANO. But other than those resistance points, they actually kind of collapsed pretty well. And I think he went on to say, strategically, let me explain how this worked. And he said that you go in there and you basically destroy everything because it takes a long time for that territory to be usable again. It's not just controlling the infrastructure hubs. That is very important because that is essentially a permission slip to be able to build infrastructure in those systems that you can use for yourself, and you can bar other people from using it. But that also takes months or weeks at least to start to get the ADMs up to a certain point so that you can start to actually build the infrastructure. So you may have the permission with the iHub, but it takes time. And that works in both ways. So when they went in and when Horde went in and Pappy went in and destroyed most of the stuff that was there, it was reconquered rather quickly by the initiative in surprising fashion. They came in and they flipped most of those iHubs at least and took it over. They even the initiative even doubled down on that and moved their death clones up to NPC space in the area in Fountain to patrol it, to make sure that it didn't flip again. So they were going to basically kind of sit on Fountain while they're participating in Delve with their clones and supers. And in doing so, though, they still have to wait out that clock. So they're not able to build jump bridges for a while. They're not able to really jam systems out for a while. And in order to do that, they have to they just have to let the clock tick, because there's no way to speed that up. It's just a matter of possessing the systems over a period of time. And again, we've heard that's about 30 days. And so that's what he was talking about. And that's why it's important to flatten that place out. And then not really to care about it after that. Because then they actually went over and created, and he described this part, it was really interesting. He gave credit to Vili, saying that they put down like 15 keep stars in order to make this long chain. You know, we think of it as an anaconda because, it's like a giant snake. And it's going to delve and it's going to constrict the place. And that's the metaphor we've been working with.
Yeah,
over time.
Yeah, that's a reference to a plan that General George McClellan came up for the American Civil War, called the Anaconda Plan, to surround and use the Navy to surround the Confederacy and choke them out.
Oh, really? Well, okay. Didn't know that historical reference.
It's just that it sounded like something else, which was a lot funnier.
Yeah. Yeah, so this was a controversial move because half or more, some people didn't agree with putting down so many keep stars, thought it was a waste of money. Gobbins admitted that he said, let's just go through this long gate here and where the red arrow is and use that and just put a bunch of weight behind it and do it. But he said that Vili was the one that said, no, we need to put these down because a lot can go wrong when you're trying to use a regional gate. And he gave Vili credit for, sticking with that plan and executing it. And he also gave credit to Fraternity for really making sure those keep stars were put into place in their time zone. And he emphasized how important it was to have Fraternity on their side, because it's an unchallenged time zone. And that is something that he says is critical to this engagement. So those two things were kind of stuck out at me. And also he referenced that 49U, everybody got together to fight on the Serenity server, which is a parallel server in China. Everybody got together to fight their big coalition. So you had a similar situation, and they made this jump from 4-Tech-07 to 49-Tech-U and got stuck, and they lost. And so the strong empire in Serenity was able to destroy the rebels, let's say, and that was the end of resistance in Serenity until it went down. So this exact place is... We've already seen one example of what can go wrong. So Vili's plan to not make that mistake and to put down keep stars, and Fraternity's execution of putting down those keep stars and protecting their deployment has really been an impressive move based on history. And it seems to be working so far, but it is a long way around. And so Gobbins kind of highlighted that, and I thought in an amicable way, and gave credit to those two participants. He also went on to describe what has been happening in Aquarius so far and some of the successes they've been having. He went on to describe some of the battles they've been having and what the tactics were. And then he had the FCs step up and talk about some of their strategies and doctrines. And one of their important doctrines is the Raven. That's been working really well for them, and probably we'll see a lot more Ravens, even though they got bombed that one time in YTAC-O, that they're actually pretty good at putting a lot of damage onto a keep star and making it, stopping the clock basically, and holding it from a long distance. And so then you have to commit to trying to destroy those ravens, and it becomes a whole strategy of pulling in the defenders into a fight that's out in the open. And that's very important. So there's some interesting things going on here. It was a 2-hour town hall, and then the Horde guys got to ask their questions, and you can catch it all on this, what is this, SoundCloud, and we'll put that in the notes. So again, very rare. This is something that Gobbins doesn't do very much, but it's nice to hear the mysterious guy's voice talking to his people and talking about what's gone on in the war so far from the point of view of Horde. Give that a listen. Anything else, Gregorian?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting when he brought up how one of the directors in Horde put together some graphs that lump they lump the Pandafam regions, Legacy regions, and Imperium regions together and show how they changed over the course of the year on the monthly economic reports.
Yeah. What was the conclusion that he saw there?
Well, I'd seen how Imperium space had been dropping with the war and with Oasa picking up pretty heavily, but that I was not expecting it to be that big a change. I guess the Winter Code guys like Fraternity are doing really well.
Yeah, let's look at these two charts. So the first one here, you can see that Goon Swarm's in the red. They put Goons, but I think that means Imperium.
Yeah, pretty sure it means Imperium.
Yeah, Legacy here is in the blue, and Fraternity and Pandemic Legion here in the yellow. So you can see since June, the situation has really flipped on its head. But this trend for Goon Swarm started in March, looks like. If these are accurate, like these are from Horde, so I don't know if they're accurate, but
yeah,
I think
since June
there economic report.
Yeah, since June there's an obvious explanation for what's going on, but for earlier stuff, it's less obvious.
What's the okay? So what do you think the June explanation is? Why everything started to fall in? In March.
The war.
I see what you mean. Yeah, the war. Well, that was July though. It was July 4th. Maybe it was gearing up for the war the month before.
Well, I mean, there's also a lot of changes to super routing and mining also coming through CCP that would probably moved a lot of miners to HOSEC.
Oh, right.
Yeah, mining in particular dropped across the board in nullsec. Well, every major alliance stopped mining as much because now Rorquals aren't as good for being your primary mining ship because of how anomalies have been changed and how moons now only provide moon goo.
Yeah. Well, these are interesting. The one that was most surprising, and I think this surprised Gobbins as well. I'm not sure. I only heard the recording one time. The coalition production over time has shifted. And again, you see Imperium right here in the middle. And Pandafam's actually been out producing. That means actually constructing things out of the harvested materials that you've gotten. But look what happens here in July when the war starts. That just completely splits in opposite directions.
He spent a lot of time talking about that. That was interesting to hear about. Like one point that he brought up was that the Imperium has, for a variety of reasons, like this, been where people who are heavily focused on industry as their main play style tend to gravitate to the Imperium. Like on TIS, Caleb often brings up that he finds a lot of the veterans gravitate toward the Imperium, and that would be his circles. And in part, that's because the stability of the Imperium has been very stable and secure, so it's easier to do industry when you know that a Sotio or a Tatar is going to still be there when the job's finished.
I mean, security, like
Yeah. And then the other thing is that since the people, that kind of people, those people also gravitate toward more of them, that so they can buy and sell their products locally.
Yeah, so strong market, which Goonswarm and the Imperium has.
Yes.
In, 1DQ.
And so Gobbins talked a decent amount about that and how that works, which
All right.
Right.
So again, that took him by surprise that their production has fallen so sharply in July because you still have the structures and you still can produce. But since July, maybe they've been busy fighting or who knows what. But it's interesting that away from the war, Fraternity and PandaFam basically are going gangbusters. Test also fell because they're probably busy with the war as well. But all this started, it's very specific to July, which is when the war started. So you can see these numbers really go in different directions. And that, again, is productions, not mining. If we look at this, this is coalition ratting. And of course, Oasa and PandaFam are just explosive out here. And not much is available for the Imperium. And Test looks like Esoterio missed or wherever. Seems to be safe enough to rat, it looks like. But if you look at mining, same situation. You have Legacy and PandaFam just being able to mine. In fact, they increased production. They had increased in June. They increased again in July. That's a good trajectory for them. And it looks like Goonswarm or the Imperium or both are just not having that kind of space or desire to mine as much. So these are, again, totals put together by Horde. I think they pick regions. And so this red line represents, I believe the regions are Period Basis, Aquarius, Delve, and Fountain. So that might be it. All right. So that was the, was there anything else in that was worth mentioning in the 2-hour?
The other
meeting?
thing that I can think of is how he talked about how they're looking at the combat logs of the Super Capital fight last week to see how much how important dreads and were after the changes a few months ago that gave them a close range ammo buff and the Super Capital hit point nerfs. And they're looking at that to see how to see what we can learn from that.
Mm-hmm. All right, some interesting stuff coming out of that town hall, again by Gobbins, the leader of Horde, and his FCs, taking 2 hours to get everybody up to speed, fill them in on what happened since the war began, and you can hear that all on your own on SoundCloud. All right, thanks, Gregorian. Put that into there. Okay, next piece of news is the Triglavians. The Triglavians seem to have, make sure I turn this off, seem to reached their goal, 27 systems in full liminality. They released a goal, they released a video with a really ear-crushing noise, so we'll turn that sound off for you. This has been translated by the guys at ARC, so you can find that on the EVE Online forums. There's a translation. It's a lot of kind of role play words about, system locked, this system locked, or not. They don't name systems, but they essentially, it sounds like they are finishing something. And that's 27 systems. People think that's the number they wanted because it's divisible by 3, and that gives them their own region, essentially. So now there is essentially a Triglavian region. We assume those systems that are conquered by Triglavians are going to connect to one another, and the normal routes to those systems are probably going to be compromised. I think we saw something that said collapsed gate in our...
and
yeah.
apparently this region is going to be named Buyan after the island in Slavic myth where Kashe Besmetne stored the object containing his soul, which is an island with very difficult to get to, and sometimes the route there is different changes.
So this may turn into more of a rotating gates to systems, almost like a sub wormhole situation. Is that a theory?
That sounded like what the implication was.
Yeah. Well, we'll cover more of this on the Sunday show. We'll probably have more information by then with our experts, and we'll get into what we think is actually going to happen. It's hard to say because, again, this is all a surprise. People are discovering this. It's not something that CCP has said, hey, this is where the game is going. This is what we're going to do. We literally have to discover what it is they do, and the players have to then surface that information, and analysts have to look at it and say, yeah, we think this is what's going to happen. So all this is very secretive as far as CCP is concerned, but it's pretty cool. All right, a couple more pieces of news here. Phantomite put out... do we have that? I don't think we have that.
It's below. It's number 4, I believe.
Okay, thank you. All right, Phantomite put out his redistribution, mineral redistribution, and his title is "Work Together with the Players or Face Failure Again and Again." So that's where he's at. And I think, what else we got?
We have the Keep Star Kill in Iridia and higher. It's if you look at bulletin point number 5 there, we got
it. It looked like this to me was a very mysterious Keepstar went down, and people couldn't figure out who it belonged to. There was a rumor that it belonged to Fraternity.
Yeah, I saw a few people from the Imperium identifying it as a Fraternity Keepstar, and the reason that I heard was because the Alliance, which controls it, also has a lot of cloaky camper alts, which the Imperium has identified as associated with Fraternity Blops groups or something. But it looks like, based on who was attacking it, like Siege Green was some of the main attackers, and they are close allies of Fraternity, so I'm pretty sure it's not a Fraternity Keepstar, and a few other people have identified it as Lo Sechnaya Shalupin.
Yeah, LSH. It belongs to LSH. I think we've heard that from multiple credible sources, including Billy here in chat. And Fraternity was shooting at it along with Pandemic Legion, along with, did you say Siege Green?
Yes,
yeah.
Siege Green.
Right. So Keepstar went down, belonged to LSH, not to Fraternity. That's not part of the chain that was built for this war effort. However, this is in Iridia in the system of Hire. LSH, again, is a group of Russian players that live in Iridia. That is their home, at least for years now, for at least 5 years. And
they hunt big stuff that goes through Iridia.
And they've been taking a little bit of space in Fountain, and from what I understand, giving Initiative a little bit of trouble there. So this might be a plus for Initiative and a negative for LSH.
And the thing about LSH is that they're on nobody's side in terms of big null groups. They'll hunt everyone. So
Right. Another thing you notice, they were able to unrig everything and remove all the modules, so they kind of looked like they knew this was going down.
I think I'm pretty sure this was an anchoring timer, so it couldn't have been fit yet.
It'd almost have to be anchoring or they had warning.
So this was anchoring. I didn't know that.
I didn't either. I didn't.
Okay.
Billy might have more info on that.
Yeah, I didn't know about it until I saw the kill mail, and I just thought that since it was unfit, it must have been anchoring.
Okay, the last thing is this awful link of the day, ALOD. What happened here?
Well, looks like Code hit this guy's Loki, and the loot fairy said no. It's about a 35 bill loss, probably a little more, depending on the abyssal mods he had in here, because they don't really list those, and you can't kind of click on it and see what stats were rolled. So you're not real sure how much, but it was definitely had some officer mods in here too, and a lot of times they're off. They're lowballed here on Z Killboard. So
yeah, officer mods and faction mods and abyssal mods.
This could be close to a 50 bill loss or more on the actual market. So it's hard to say, but it's a huge loss. It looks like Code was able to tackle this Loki that was nullified Cloaky fit, and has also had Shadow Serpents and Int stabilizers, so it aligns and warps faster. So this was very slippery, but they used Akaris to point it and lost all the Nagas. And I think they had 4 Nagas and Akaris. I think they came out on the negative with the loot drops on this.
Yeah.
Because only 120.
Interesting. So they ended up not making money on this kill.
Yeah, they lost money on this one.
It only dropped 127 million.
Yeah, so
out of a possible 30 to 50 billion.
Yeah, that must
modules. So
yeah, it looks like all the stuff was in a container, and with a container, the container has a 50% chance of dropping, and if it drops, the entire all the contents drop. If it doesn't, none of the contents drop.
Correct. So they really had like a 50-50 of like hitting it huge or nothing, and they rolled nothing. So
yeah. So Loki's are Tech 3 cruisers, and those are commonly used for transporting expensive objects because they can be fit for nullified and insta warp. And when they're fit as such, they're more durable than an interceptor. So people often use Loki to move around stuff like this, or expensive research blueprints or things like that. The other big option that a lot of people like is the Victoria luxury yacht. I guess this person was just unlucky today.
Yeah, I think the yacht doesn't have quite as much room, possibly, but it's also faster, right? Align time than this would be. Normally, though, he was in Hosek, and I normally go with warp core stabilizers in Hosek instead of the align time, just because in case something like this does happen, you're able to just warp away anyway before they're able to alpha you off the field. Before they can lock you, you're normally able to warp. So it's just bad luck. And whoever did the tackle for Code did a really good job. So it happens. Anytime you undock, you could lose your ship. So just be careful.
Okay, our last bit of news is this happened yesterday. I don't know if you could see it very well, but this is Andrew Groen, the author of Empires of Eve, Volume 2. And we had a good 2.5 hours of conversation and questions, and he did a ton of talking about his book. So we're going to bring you pieces of that all this week on separate shows. But it was amazing, and you should probably, if you are part of the Kickstarter, be seeing it sometime soon, like within the next month. And then maybe in November it may go on sale to the public. But it was a great time. He's a great thinker and a great author, and somebody who's taken a lot of time to live with EVE Online and put stories together for you guys. And it's I've read the book. It's really good, and it goes and it's thick and it's heavy, and it's got a lot of really good work about putting the puzzles together on what caused what. So look forward to that. It's going to be a great read. I think he finished it, like he says this in the interview, but he finished it like last November. And and then things have slowed him down because of the virus and stuff. But he's getting to the point now where he's going to release it. He's not going to make a big deal out of it like you would normally with a book release. So he's going to just kind of make a fulfillment and stuff like that. Okay, we have a special little treat here. We're going to have a quick interview, an impromptu interview with Ashtarothi, if I can grab him here out of... Yeah, let me grab him and bring him up. Hello, Ashtarothi.
Hey!
How you doing? Ash, you're on, and I just wanted to ask you, what is going on with Triglavians?
That's a really good question. So you can hear me all right, right?
Yes, you're good.
Yes.
Excellent. So basically, I believe it was this morning, we secured our 27th final liminality. By we, I mean the pro-Triglavian effort. I actually haven't been able to be that involved in the actual pushing. So they captured the 27th final liminality. And one of the things that's really noteworthy is that as soon as they did, the other system that was liminal capable instantly went Fortress, which really implies that this was that is the end of the game, as it were.
Yeah.
So, and then now we've received a message from the Convocation of Triglav, which kind of echoes the message that was sent about a week ago. So a week ago, they sent out the message that says we are approaching totality, and we also received that in that video is also now being broadcasted on the billboards, just like the previous two did. And one of the most curious statements out of that line was a line that I mistranslated as 3 cries of 9 fears within the clade. I didn't know what that means. The Triglavians are very flowery in their language, but that didn't really seem to match with anything. Usually there's some sort of practical meaning to what they say. But what it actually ends up being is Krai, K-R-A-I, I believe it is a Russian province or territory. And so what they're saying is that there's going to be 3 cries, one for each of the clades, with 9 fields each, for a total of 27. So the 27 final liminalities that we have captured will now be basically distributed among the 3 clades. And I have no idea what happens at that point, but they've now called these the cultivated field, as it were. And now through the cultivation of the field, the domain of Bouillon shall be realized within the final liminalities.
Well, looks like it is coming to an end, and we're going to see a new phase. Do you have now predictions on what's going to happen with the systems that have been taken over?
Well, we know that there's going to be some sort of permanent database change that will happen in all final liminality systems and potentially all fortresses. However, how extensive that database change is going to be, what this means for these systems permanently, is largely unknown. The reason why this is important, just so that just in case people are not aware, every instance of EVE Online all use the same central database to manage the actual baseline universe, right? So Serenity, Singularity, Tranquility, they all talk to the same central source to know what the physical structure of New Eden is. And this is one of the biggest problems with making changes to New Eden just dynamically. So what happened was, at the end of invasions, the state of the board must look the same both on the Chinese server and the American server. And this is actually the reason why we've had massive fortifications. And there could theoretically be massive liminalities, but from my understanding, Edencom basically just stomped all over the Chinese server. So we've only ever gotten fortresses as far as I'm aware. But the point is that basically when one side wins or loses to that level in one of these systems, the other side not instantly, but will get a massive fortification or massive invasion, which can't be beaten. And after a few days, will just complete as a final liminality or as a fortress. So that way they can ensure that the database is the same no matter what.
So whatever happens on Tranquility affects those other servers, and whatever happens on those servers are actually just Singularity, because nobody plays on
Serenity.
test server. Sorry, Serenity.
Yeah.
Will affect us. And now that it's come to an end at 27 systems, it seems like it's kind of locked up, and those systems that have been taken over are the same systems on both servers. Something's going to happen with those, but we don't know what.
Right. So if I could speculate based on what they've said, kind of we've long since guessed that there'd be some sort of like central hub or ability to transport between these different systems in a new way, especially for pro-Triglavian people, especially if they're going to turn off the Stargates. What I believe is happening more and more is that they're actually going to have 3 networks, one for each of the clades, right? So there'll be the Svarog, the Veles, and the Perun domains, basically. And what that will mean, I'm not sure. Like each clade has their own goals and their own wants and their own needs. So one of the things to note, though, is that just based on the nature of EVE Online and space-time in EVE Online, basically, in order to make Stargates work, right? 2 different stars' gravitational resonances have to like hit in a specific way, and that causes like a dip in space-time. If you think about it, like a weak point in the fabric of space-time, and those can be used by scientists to dial them in to make Stargates between different solar systems. This is why they can't just connect any old system to any old system, and it takes a lot of effort. Now we have a new way with our new jump bridges that we've developed, but if you notice, that actually is developed off of Triglavian technology. But either way, the point is, what is potentially happening here is that the Triglavians are actually manipulating the star as a way of manipulating the topology of space around the star and in the solar system in order to cause it to be able to connect to a different system. So they are weaving the networks, the systems together, and I'm probably going to make them connect to each other in some sort of conduit network kind of way. But because they're manipulating space-time, I would suggest that one of the consequences of that will be that the Stargates that exist as they are will, by natural order of things, shut off. Not because they forced it to, but if you're going to move where the Lagrange points or where the resonance points are in the universe or in the solar system, then the places that were put in a specific place will no longer work.
Yeah, that's interesting. So they're taking it over for their means. In the process, they make the current situation for gates wither because it's not tenable. And so you're going to see gates falling and new gates emerge where they want them. Those are the non-player characters. So basically, it seems like it's going to be a new region or new 3 regions that are kind of connected to one another. Possibly. It's all theoretical. Like I said earlier, we don't know what CCP's up to. It's up to players to discover it as it happens. Ash, thanks a lot for coming on short notice. We're finishing up here. And we will get more information for you on this on Sunday. It's a big, big event. So we'll definitely cover it again Sunday. For now, I want to thank Ash Dorothy for coming. Grigorin.
The one thing I do want to add, just for the Right the Now news, is that most of the biggest things often require downtime to happen. And this happened today. So the changes could actually start to be seen as early as tomorrow.
Okay. Fantastic. We'll have a look.
But as late as the 7th, probably.
All right. Thanks again, Ash Dorothy. I really appreciate it. Okay, Grigorin, Maddox, thanks very much for showing up today. And thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow with more Talking in Stations.